here's some benefits. And honestly, FHA is literally, I think it's my favorite loan program to help folks use in Puerto Rico or wherever. Also licensed in Florida, and our company as a whole operates in like 9 other states. I love FHA loan programs to help people buy, especially in the current market conditions. Let's talk about why. So currently the rates are lower than conventional by about a point, right? It's about a full percentage point lower right now than what we're seeing for conventional primary home purchases. The minimum down payment for FHA is only 3.5% versus conventional is typically more like 5% minimum conventional. VA and USDA let us go with zero, but this is still a really great benefit, I think, because it's a little bit lower than what we see for conventional. And then here is another really cool detail is that even if it's a multifamily property up to 4 units in Puerto Rico, we can go with just a down payment of 3.5%. That's in comparison to conventional loans in Puerto Rico for to buy a two, three, or four, multifamily property type property in Puerto Rico. Then your minimum down payment for conventional loan is going to be 25%. Now, some people might be like, well, hang on, now we have 5% available on conventional multifamily purchases in the US since last year. That is true. You can go with 5% down on a multifamily property up to 4 units if you're going to be living in one of those units, but only in the continental US. And this is because there's only one company after Hurricane Maria, there's only one company left in Puerto Rico that does mortgage insurance, right? Not property insurance, mortgage insurance, insuring the loans. And they are just not comfortable with the level of risk of insuring loans with only 5% down in Puerto Rico for somebody's a multifamily property. So the best next option is FHA, I'd say. I mean, 3.5% down on a 4 unit or two, 3 or 4 unit property is pretty sweet. So that's, I think, is one of the best benefits. Here's another really good one. Another good benefit is that we can go all the way down to a FICO score of 580 and still get you a mortgage, which obviously it's going to depend why your FICO score is down at 580. If there's a bunch of recent like late payments on mortgages, well, that other thing might disqualify you. But if just if everything else is okay, maybe like you had some trouble, folks go through hard times and their credit gets a little beat up. But if they're in the last year things are coming up and you're up at 580 and don't have like lots of late payments and derogatory trade lines, we could get you this loan, I believe, right? Another good thing is that that there is seller credit and lender credit available, so that could be a potential way to help reduce costs. Seller credit for FHA, it caps out at, I believe, 6%, right? And lender credit, that all depends on you. That would be a conversation we have or that you have with your loan officer asking, okay, what's the maximum amount of lender credit that I could get? If it appraises over the contract price, we could even that makes it a little easier to negotiate some seller credit in there too. And here's a really great other benefit for FHA is that it allows us to stretch your debt to income ratio to 55%. Now, what does that mean? Because conventional loans, basically, if you think about your gross income, right? Imagine that, pick a number, right? I'll just pick $4,000 a month. And for a conventional loan program to help somebody purchase their primary home, we can only use 50% of their gross income towards all of their debts, right? So the future loan monthly payment, any current monthly payments they've got for credit cards, car loans, all other debts, things like that. So that's called your debt to income ratio. We can use half of your gross income for you to purchase on a property. Now, FHA lets us use 55%, so a little bit more than half of your gross income towards debts. Now, that doesn't sound like a big difference, only 5% difference, but dollars and cents, if you're trying to purchase a $200,000 property, that little 5% difference lets us stretch your purchase power, assuming that your income would stay the same. Lets us stretch your purchase power by another $30,000, right? That can be the difference maker, right? That could be the difference maker between winning an offer or not. That could be it could be very helpful. So that's another really great benefit about FHA. We can stretch your income further. And another really nice thing about FHA is that if you go to this QR code, it has FHA offers a list of pre-approved condominiums that are already approved by the FHA that we can use to help you purchase a condominium in one of those communities if you find a listing, right? So this is great because if you're aware of for conventional loan purchases for a condominium, um, there's a whole bunch of hoops we got to jump through to get the condo approved. It's like an 8-page federal document from Fannie Mae that we send to the association to get things approved. It's a bunch of things we got to do. That's for conventional. FHA, all that work's already been done, right? But beware in Puerto Rico. So if you go to that QR code and you go to that link and you search by state Puerto Rico, you will see that there's honestly just not a ton of properties that are eligible and that qualify. So it is kind of a shorter list, but there are ones that it'll tell you, look, this one's already approved. So if you can find a available listing in one of those communities, that's a really good sign. So these are all the benefits, or some of the benefits of FHA. So a couple other things. This is an important bit of detail about the maximum loan amounts. So I don't know why I put that on there twice. So for a single family home purchase, right, with FHA, the max loan amount is $498,257. A very oddly specific dollar amount that FHA lets us go with to help you purchase your primary home. But note that that's the loan amount maximum, right? So any higher that you want to go above that, totally cool, but you'll just have to increase your down payment. Now, if you want to know using the FHA's minimum down payment of 3.5%, that translates to a total purchase price of about $516,328. That would be the purchase value. And then after your 3.5% down payment, that would leave a loan amount of exactly $498,257, right? So I know that's a little wonky. If you want to round the numbers off, just consider it that the max loan amount for FHA is going to be right about $498,000, a little under $500,000 for the loan amount. But if it's a 2-unit, then the max loan amount becomes $637,950. There on the right-hand side is what the purchase would be, including the 3.5% down payment, right? So that difference again is the down payment to get. This would be the purchase price, $661,088. This would be the loan amount. Here's the loan amount max for 3 units and for 4 units. And so I'll leave that there for a second in case anybody wants to screen grab it. Yeah, I see there about the QR code. The QR code, let me go back to that. There you go. This QR code takes you to the website where FHA posts the condominiums that it's already approved. It should. I tested it this morning. It should work. Hopefully it doesn't go some other strange spot. But that's what that QR code is for. I see got a question in the chat there. So thanks for the question. Those are the max loan amounts, folks. Which in Puerto Rico, I mean, you can there's lots of places that you can find. I think that I can find. I'd be happy to live in places up to these loans amount. I don't know about everybody, but that's about what it looks like. Okay, and again, oddly specific loan amount numbers, but each year these loan amounts, max loan amounts, usually go up. So hopefully by the end of this year, we'll see that go up too. All right. Okay. So I've talked about the benefits of the FHA loan program. Here's some challenges that I see again and again, specifically related to when folks are purchasing in Puerto Rico, right? So the number one challenge I'd say is repairs getting called out on an appraisal. Now, this is because there's no two ways about it. The FHA loan program, one of the things that makes it so great is that how they manage risk, like the borrower's risks, okay, of all of the people that have an FHA loan program. But one of the ways that they do that kind of can be a challenge is that they require that the property that you're buying with the FHA loan program needs to meet their minimum property requirements, right? And they have a higher bar than conventional. So if you figure these are the kinds of things that I typically see get called out or mentioned if there's repairs that are needed on an FHA loan, because basically the way that it works is if you're just using a straight FHA purchase program, we would order the appraisal. The appraiser goes out. If they see anything that doesn't meet the minimum property requirements for FHA, they write that on the report and they say, this needs to be fixed before we can close. Okay. And so then it comes, usually in Puerto Rico, the buyer has to pay to fix those things before we can close, which is a little risky, right? Because, well, one, it's not ideal that it's more money coming out of the pocket while you're trying to buy the place. Two, it's less than ideal because, well, what happens if you pay to fix this other person's house and then we don't close? What happens to your money? You just paid to fix somebody's place and then we didn't close. That's obviously not cool. So it is a bit of a risk factor, though. Thankfully, very often these repairs can get done so that we are able to close. But here's the things that I most often see: appliances. So if you visit a property and it doesn't have any appliances, or if it's missing an appliance, FHA requires that it have all appliances and that they're all functional for us to be able to for you to be able to purchase with FHA. This is most common in the kitchen, right? Got to have a stove, the fridge, those kinds of things in place and working. Another big one for FHA is paint. There can be no chipped or peeling paint anywhere, and also evidence that any like humidity or moisture is like seeping through is going to get called out. It's going to get mentioned. So, making sure that the paint is completely not having any chips, not having cracks, those kinds of things. Interior and exterior paint is what they look for. Old septic tanks. Holy cow, we get this one a lot. It doesn't have anything to do with like the number of taps necessarily. Though the septic tank, it does have to be, I believe it's at least 10 feet from the actual like property, like from the actual like building. But we get called out a lot for septic tanks sometimes, especially on older properties. So that one can get called out. If you're out there shopping, be looking at, if it's on septic, go look and see if you can find the septic tank, see how old it is, ask them when it was last maintained, and all those good types of questions, and if it's ever been certified recently, right? Because septic gets called out a lot. Electrical stuff, you might have seen if you're shopping sometimes in Puerto Rico and other places, you'll see like an electrical outlet literally above the shower head, and that's the that's the hot water heater connection. That's not allowed. FHA can't have you can't have electrical outlets in your shower. So that gets called out sometimes if it's like other types of electrical things like missing a cover or exposed wires, things like that might get called out. Smoke detectors, property has to have a sufficient amount of working smoke detectors. And then sometimes there's other little specialnesses that get called out, like weird random things that might just be specific to a property, like handrails. Like handrails on stairs get called out a lot for FHA. Like they need to be, every staircase or ledge or ramp has to have a stair, has to have a handrail, and it can't be loose. This has been called out a number of times. So there you go. Another thing to note is that FHA loans, regardless of how much money you put down, it has mortgage insurance as part of your monthly payment for the life of the loan. Okay. Like I said before, FHA is great at managing risk for their buyers. That's how they can go down to 580 FICO. That's how they can go with only 3.5% down on multifamily properties. And the reason that they can do that stuff is because everyone with an FHA loan in the country is paying a little bit in their monthly payment for mortgage insurance. And so that's just a feature versus conventional. If you put 20% or if you put 20% down at closing, or if after making payments, eventually you have 20% of equity, then your mortgage insurance requirement goes away and your payment will drop by that amount. FHA, one little challenge is that we got to make sure that the numbers work with that little bit that they tack on in there for mortgage insurance. Okay. Oh, here is my least favorite challenge about the FHA loan. And it's called the FHA self-sufficiency test. If you're not familiar, here's the idea, right? Imagine that, and this I should mention, it only applies to multifamily properties of 3 and 4 units. It does not apply to single family homes. It does not apply to 2-unit like multifamily properties, only 3 and 4 units. Here's the deal. Imagine that you're a lender. You got millions of dollars in the bank and you're trying to identify like who are you going to loan it to. And that basically somebody buys a house and then immediately after closing, they default and they stop making their payments, right? But it's a multifamily house. So you, the lender, would want to know how much can you rent that property out for, and you'd want to be confident that the rental income after the borrower defaulted would be enough to cover and make the loan payments for that person who defaulted on the loan and that you evicted and kicked out after foreclosing on it, right? Okay. So the FHA self-sufficiency test is just that. Basically, what they look at is that the rental income coming from the property that you're buying, again, only for a 3 or 4 unit, that the rental income has to be greater than the what we call the PITI, the PITI, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. It needs to be more. The rental income needs to be more than the monthly payment, right? There's a little bit more to it. I'm not going to bore everybody with those details, but there is an extra bit of math. And the important thing to note, though, in the general case, is that it's only long-term rental income is what's considered, not short-term rental income values, right? Lenders don't look at that, and they're going to ask the appraiser to give the opinion of how much do they think that those units are going to rent for in that market. And once the appraiser puts it on that report, that pretty much sets it, right? And usually appraisers put lower numbers than what we tend to expect. So this is really important because basically, if like you could be highly qualified for an FHA loan. The property can look beautiful, not need any repairs. We're good to go. But if the appraiser puts on there when they go out and do their visit that it would not generate enough long-term rental income to cover the mortgage payment, stuck, right? We're stuck. There's ways around it, but it usually involves either asking the appraiser to reconsider the rental property income if you can get that to happen, if you can provide information that they'll increase the rental income, or that the borrower has to bring more money down to get the loan amount to shrink so that the monthly payment falls below the amount of rental income that's getting generated. Okay, so that's the self-sufficiency test. Super duper important, more so on like bigger, higher ticket purchases, though, if I'm honest. And then, yeah, that's the moral of the story is that the appraiser is going to give the opinion of long-term rent. Like they're not going to. It can be making. The seller can tell you it makes $30,000 a month in short-term rental income, and that's awesome. But appraiser is only going to ask how much does it generate if you put somebody in there on an annual lease, right? And that's the number that we got to go with. Folks, that's literally it. There's not too much else. I mean, this is a super great loan program. It's very straightforward. It's available to anybody in the country. It's not like you gotta, have certain other types of things. Obviously, we're gonna do the same qualifying routine in the application of credit, income, and assets, and making sure all those things fall in line. But thank you so much for coming and visiting here. I got a question asking about the QR code. So someone asked me QR code. Not here. Let me go back to that. So this QR code here is to my calendar, right? If you're interested, if you want to talk to me directly and you want to book a time with me to discuss, if you're qualifiable or any questions that you got. You can go to that link there. This QR code should take you to my calendar, and you can book a time whenever it's convenient for you. The previous QR code, though, I think I see somebody asking about, goes back here. This should take you to the FHA condo approved list of condominiums. And it takes you to the general page, and then you have to filter it. There's an option that you should select to go just to Puerto Rico, and then it should allow it. It should allow it there. So let me see if we got any other questions. So, okay, here's a common question. So employment and those kinds of things, specifically about employment history. If FHA is a little bit strict about employment history, so what they're typically looking for are folks that you have to be in the same line of work for 2 years with minimal gaps. If you've been switching employers a lot in 2 years, that could be a challenge for getting approved for FHA. But so long as you've been working in the same line of work and that there's not gaps between employers, should be no problem, right? Should be no problem. But folks, thank you so much. I really appreciate those of you that came and tuned in. I see that I went for a tight 35 minutes. That's pretty good for me. I tend to be quite long-winded. Let me go back down to my contact info. But I'll sit tight here. I'll kind of hang out in case anybody has any other further questions. But thank you all so much. Again, I'll be posting this on the Facebook channel. So on the YouTube channel. So feel free to check if you tuned in late, or if you have other questions or just want to check it out. I'll put the recording up there, and I'll be attentive to if anybody has any questions. But thank you all so much for coming and joining us on this webinar today about FHA in Puerto Rico. My name's Nate Stewart, loan officer here at CoLab Lending. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time.